think about it, when we're in a stressed state, the last thing your body's going to let you do is sleep.
What is it about sleep that so few of us understand?
The autonomic nervous system doesn't know the difference between a real threat or an imagined threat. And so if your nervous system is in a stressed state, it thinks there's some sort of threat and it's going to do its damned best to keep you alert. The thing that irritates me that I see so regularly is this, just do these 4 things and then you'll sleep better. Or, just follow this particular breathing technique that the military uses and then you're going to sleep fine. There's no hack for sleep to give someone the tools to shift their own gears, to put themselves in the state that they need to, whatever that is, if it's a game or a difficult conversation or to sleep, is like giving someone the tools to their own bodies. Your body's not failing you. Your body's actually trying to help you. It's just got the wrong message. The trick I tell myself and people that I work with is...
Welcome to Light Within. We are so excited you're here.
I'm Steve.
I'm Daniel.
And we're brothers, co-founders of Aura, and your co-hosts for Light Within. Aura is the #1 app for your mental wellness and sleep. And we're really excited to share our new podcast dedicated to helping you rediscover the light within you.
Every week, we share uncovered wisdom from the world's leading mental health experts for free.
But before we dive in, we'd love to ask you for a quick favor. We're a brand new podcast, and your hitting subscribe would mean the world to us. So please take a moment to hit subscribe, like, comments, and help our team bring this amazing content to you every single week. Thank you. And now back to the episode.
Cass, welcome to Light Within. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you. I am so thrilled, honestly, to be here with both of you. What a treat.
Cass, I still remember when we first spoke to you to become a coach. And I remember thinking we have to get her on Aura. And now you have over 100,000 followers and 3 million plays on Aura. It's incredible. Thank you.
Yeah, it's such a privilege. And to get to be part of it for so long with both of you and the incredible team is such a privilege. I'm so happy to be here.
Cass, we're so excited to have you because sleep is so foundational to our lives. Yet so few of us understand how to get good sleep. But you've worked with athletes, numerous clinicians and patients, sleep experts from diverse backgrounds, and you really sought after the truth behind sleep. So we know you have so much to share with our listeners. I'd love to start off by asking, what is it about sleep that so few of us understand?
I would have answered this very differently maybe 5 years ago, but I feel like in the last 5 years, maybe 10 years, our understanding of the importance of sleep in every facet of our lives is becoming really much more part of the conversation in professional athletic settings, in healthcare settings, in school settings. I'm reading more and more articles written about the importance of sleep and the research that is just exploding, and so many podcasts are talking about sleep. So I feel like there is culturally more of an understanding of the importance of sleep, but I think still it's such a mystery to us. I mean, while we're asleep, our consciousness is somewhere else, and we're studying sleep from a scientific standpoint, but there's so much that we don't understand. But if I have to give you a piece of kind of what I think a lot of people don't really wrap their head around right currently about sleep, is that one of our most innate natural rhythms and biological, physiological processes that happen every day, if we're lucky, and is foundational to life, but that there are so many things that get in the way of that sleep. So we don't have to fix our sleep. We have to fix and alter and adjust all of the factors that get in the way of sleep. Sleep is a natural process, but we're really good at interfering with it. That's what I think most people don't consider when they talk about sleep.
I want to dive deeper into like the stress aspect, like the mental and emotional aspect, because even for me, when I've had a long day at work or stressful events are happening, it's a lot harder for me to sleep. And I'm sure a lot of listeners can relate to that as well. So when someone comes to you and they let you know the stressful things that are happening, or they have like anxiety in their life, What's the advice that you give them to really take that next step in helping them sleep better?
Like you said, a really common situation for people. And if I can just take a step back, I think it'll help everybody in our way of thinking about it. And this is also the first thing that I do when someone comes to me with a sleep issue, is explain the autonomic nervous system, its function, and then how that is involved in sleep. I'll do a really base overview for all of us to have this conversation. Part of our autonomic nervous system, we have what most people have heard as the fight or flight and the rest and digest. And we can talk about that as the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And for ease of discussion, I think talking about it as there's a stressed state and a relaxed state. And our stressed state from our sympathetic nervous system is designed to be a short-term physiological state that comes when we need to attend to some sort of threat in our environment, like a tiger that's circling the camp, or you're walking down the street and a bicycle whizzes past you, or you're driving and somebody slams on the brakes in front of you. We don't have to think about it. We have this stress response that takes over. There's a whole cascade of physiological effects that happen. Our blood pressure goes up, our heart rate increases, pupils dilate, our breathing changes. There's a whole set of factors that happen in the body to allow us to focus in on the threat, be physically prepared to do what we need to do. And then what is supposed to happen is once that threat has changed and we're no longer in a threatening, stressful situation, our body is supposed to go back to what they call the parasympathetic state, and I'll call the relaxation state. And so in a healthy nervous system, we will toggle back and forth as needed throughout the day. You're in a stressful situation, your body kicks into the stressed state. You're not in a stressful situation, your body shifts back into a relaxed state. That's the sign of health. Health is not, as we once kind of talked about, constantly staying in a relaxed state. We actually need to be able to go back and forth. And so what happens for us, if you think about it, when we're in a stressed state, the last thing your body's going to let you do is sleep, because a nervous system thinks you're in a threatening situation. There's some sort of threat that needs to be attended to. And we're at our most vulnerable when we're asleep because we're not attending to our environment and we're unresponsive, particularly when we're in deep sleep. We're very difficult to arouse. And so if your nervous system is in a stressed state, it thinks there's some sort of threat and it's going to do its damned best to keep you alert. And even if you do go to sleep because you're so exhausted, it's going to keep you in a lighter sleep so that you're more easily roused if there's some sort of noise or disturbance in your environment. Your body and your nervous system is actually trying to keep us safe. It's designed as a short-term state, but what happens because of so many factors, our environment, stress, caffeine, trauma, noises, sounds, or a global pandemic, a war, some very real stressful situations that are happening, the nervous system gets stuck in a stressed state. So you're kind of stuck in that gear chronically. And then, this is so ironic, another thing that contributes to the body staying in a stressed state is sleep deprivation. So there's this really vicious cycle that can happen for someone. They're already stressed for a whole myriad of reasons. They don't get a good night's sleep because the body thinks there's some threat in the environment, even if there isn't one. The autonomic nervous system doesn't know the difference between a real threat or an imagined threat. So you're on high alert, you're not going into a deep sleep, and then you're tired and sleep deprived the next day, further kicking you into that chronic stress state, again, making it more difficult to fall asleep at night. So it can become a very vicious cycle really easily. The thing that I try to communicate to people as often as I can is your body's not failing you. Your body's actually trying to help you. It's just got the wrong message. You're actually not in a threatening environment anymore, if that is the case. And if not, that's a very different conversation. But if you're in a safe environment, you actually need to communicate to your nervous system and say, hey, there's no threat anymore, and learn the skill to shift back into a relaxed state so your body can go through the natural sleep stages, fall asleep, go through the proper sleep cycles and progression, and then have a chance of waking up rested.
I feel like that's so powerful because what you're describing is such a challenge in the modern world. There's always notifications, there's always some sort of need that's catching our attention. And so even at night, when you're ready to sleep, you go home and then you're thinking about the next thing that you have to do. That's almost like kicking back the fight and flight system. And that goes in a vicious cycle, as you said. And so what you're describing is we need to create an environment where we feel safe and our minds feel safe, and everything else will just naturally happen. And really, there's no hack beyond that. Is respecting what our body needs in order to sleep and help us rest.
There's no hack for sleep. The thing that irritates me that I see so regularly is these headlines like, oh, just do these 4 things and then you'll sleep better. Or, just follow this particular breathing technique that the military uses and then you're going to sleep fine. Coincidentally, a lot of my really close friends are doctors, and they're saying, I feel so embarrassed when a patient comes to me with difficulty sleeping and all I have to give them are A, medication, which is not addressing the issue, or B, tell them to follow some sleep hygiene rules, which is almost insulting to give to someone who has had chronic sleep issues for 20 years. They know all the things to do, but smelling the lavender, going to bed at the same time, having a cool, dark room, these are all really valuable behaviors and environmental factors to include as part of a sleep routine. But if you have a long-term issue with insomnia, or you've got trauma, which means your nervous system is in a chronic state of fight or flight, gratitude journaling before bed isn't going to cut it. So that's a big motivation of mine, is to see the clients one-on-one, but also help change the education system, not only for the medical professional and everybody who interacts with patients around sleep, but also from my profession of psychologists who also don't get much training in sleep disorders, sleep medicine, to even understand the impact of, say, obstructive sleep apnea. There's very little understanding. So many people are kind of falling through the cracks in the system because no one's really trained yet. And hopefully this will change to really understand this piece of the sleep puzzle. But this understanding the nervous system and the relaxation versus the stress response, I think, is so key.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that really stuck out to me was you saying that we just don't feel safe enough to go to bed. Whenever I talk to my friends or whenever I think about my own sleep, that's not the first thing I think of. I don't think, am I safe enough to sleep right now at my own home, in my own cozy bed? Another thing that stuck out was the concept of like trauma, right? Like your own thoughts. It can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not real. Could you talk more about how unresolved trauma affects the nervous system and in turn sleep?
I actually came into focusing on sleep from kind of this back door because I was teaching meditation in luxury drug and alcohol rehab centers in Malibu. That's a long, not that interesting story as how I ended up there. But I was teaching meditation, and the goal of meditation is not to fall asleep. So I'm sitting there, newly freshly minted meditation teacher, and everybody keeps falling asleep on me. And I'm like, what is going on? And then after every meditation class, invariably someone would say to me, oh, Cass, will you come into my bedroom and talk me to sleep tonight? And I'd be like, no. And what are you talking about? Like, nobody's supposed to sleep in my class, And this happened time after time after time after time until after 6 months, I said to myself, hold on a second, something's going on here. Why are people falling asleep on a hardwood floor in the middle of the day with so-and-so snoring next to them loudly? There's light coming in, there's noise from the kitchen, it was chaotic, and they're asleep when in the temperature-controlled dark rooms at night with comfy pillows, it was a very nice rehab, they weren't able to fall asleep. And that really got me thinking and asking that question. And I became really aware of the role of the nervous system. And so when you said, Daniel, I'm not thinking about whether I'm safe or not when I go to sleep. The nervous system is not connected to the prefrontal cortex in that way. The nervous system is further down the evolutionary part of the brainstem and the amygdala and these more unconscious processes in the brain that are constantly scanning for our safety in our environment, but we're not cognizant of that process happening. We're just aware on a kind of a background sense of whether our environment is safe or not. I keep thinking of LA examples, which is funny because I'm in Australia now. But when I was living in Los Angeles, I used to hike. They have these amazing trails in the parks throughout the city. And rattlesnakes is things that you come across in nature in Southern California. I was climbing through Griffith Park, and I was coming down this one trail, and I almost stepped on a rattlesnake, and somehow I managed to see it last minute and jump out of the way. And I had a very predictable physiological response. My heart rate increased. My ability to get myself out of that situation happened in big part thanks to my autonomic nervous system putting me into that stress response. But next time I was on that same trail and I was getting close to that same place in the trail, what do you think I was thinking about, but also what was happening in my body? My nervous system remembered, oh, last time we were here, we almost stepped on a rattlesnake. And so it took one pairing of stimulus and response to condition my nervous system to know this environment, there's likely going to be some sort of danger that I need to be aware of. And so I'm going to stay on higher alert in this part of the trail, on this trail, than I would be if I was walking a different trail at a different time. And in social psychology, they call that one trial learning. If you have an incident that has a very strong danger response, it takes one time to pair that environment or that smell or that sound with danger in your nervous system to keep us safe. And so if we think about trauma, if somebody has a traumatic incident happen and it doesn't get resolved, someone who's had trauma is much more likely to be, you can talk about sympathetic dominance, or more likely to go into a stressed state than someone who hasn't. But that doesn't mean to say that people who haven't had any trauma don't experience a lot of stress, because they do. But at its very core base level, we're either in one of those two modes. And if we're in our stressed mode, our body's going to fight sleeping. Now, I've had clients who have told me things about stressful events that happened at night while they were sleeping. So you think about pairing a stressful or traumatic event with the environment of their own bedroom and with the environment of dark. Or when they were kids, I had a client whose brothers played tricks on him at night while he was in his own bedroom, or kids that were, as a punishment, put in a dark room, or people who had awful things happen at night. Their nervous system, not intellectually, but their body goes, okay, this environment is not safe. I have to stay on alert. And you can see the direct relationship between a trauma that happens around the bed or night and somebody, even if it's 50 years on, still having that same association of bed and night and sleep time isn't safe, until someone can learn that skill, not only to go back and forth between a stress response and a relaxation response, but to create a new association with the dark, a new association with bedtime and the bed and the pillows and the blankets, and create a association that is warm and comforting and familiar rather than something that's stressful. And just to relate it to someone who hasn't had any traumatic event like that, if you think about, if you have a bad night's sleep for whatever reason, the next day, come dinner time, you can already start to have the thought, oh no, am I going to have another bad night's sleep again? I have to get up at this time and I have to perform. I have a meeting or I have an interview or whatever. You can already see how even one night of poor sleep can set into motion a cycle of, oh no, maybe it's going to happen again. And then what? And da 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 da. And it's really easy to create a stress association with sleep.
I'm so glad you just brought up that last point because that's me. When I don't get that good night's sleep the next day, I wake up and I'm struggling. Like I need my 8 hours. My mom does not. I call her any time of the day. She's awake. She's happy. I don't know how she does it. But for those people who struggle to get that good night's sleep and are worried the next day, what should they do?
I don't have a one size fits all, but if there's no issues with breathing, there's no history of trauma or anxiety or issue that needs to be addressed, if none of that is the case and it's just a simple case of like, oh, I got a bad night's sleep, is it going to happen again and I'm not functioning well, getting exercise in the morning can really help offset some of the fatigue and the negative impacts of a poor night's sleep. And then just giving yourself a little prep talk, like, okay, it was just one bad night's sleep. Doesn't mean it's going to happen again. And taking any pressure off. And this is kind of mind politics with yourself, because if you put pressure on yourself, like I have to get a good night's sleep, you're adding stress and it's even more difficult to get a good night's sleep. Or I had 3 bad nights sleep and I have to get a good night's sleep tonight. You're just setting yourself up for a poor night's sleep. So
it turns into a performance now.
Exactly. Then it becomes a performance anxiety.
Competition.
Exactly. And then with of the tracking, it's really easy to get into that loop for people. My husband had it happen the other night and I was like, I knew this was going to happen. He was like so focused on trying to get a good night's sleep that he had a terrible night's sleep. The trick I tell myself and people that I work with is don't make sleep the goal, which is, again, kind of, you have to play these tricks with your mind. The goal is just to get your body into a calm state and rest. You just have to get yourself into the waiting room. Like, get yourself into bed, do all the right things. If you have a bunch of thoughts about things that you need to do, write them down so they're out of your head and they're outsourced. You can revisit them tomorrow. And then just tell yourself, I'm not trying to fall asleep. I'm not trying to get the perfect night's sleep. All I'm doing is I'm putting myself into bed and I'm going to put myself into a calm, relaxed state. You both have created such a wonderful app that has so many resources to help someone get into that state. So guided meditation, guided imagery, listening to a sleep story, anything like that helps kind of take your mind away from focusing on trying to sleep or whatever it is that you're worried about, and then gives your body a chance to go into that parasympathetic, relaxed state.
Yeah.
And then, like we were talking about, sleep will happen. It's a natural process. Your body knows how to sleep. We just have to get out of the way and stop pushing it or interfering with the process. So to answer your question, just don't try to sleep. Just let yourself rest. And from that place, your body can actually fall asleep.
Even as the co-founder of Aura, I'm really guilty for overthinking. I'm constantly thinking about, the next thing for the company. And sometimes even the act of getting into bed signals to me it's time to think. It's quiet. I'm going to have the best thoughts.
Yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes I get to a point where I'm like consciously trying to sleep, but no, I'm actually not trying to sleep at all. And I feel like that dissonance is something that people may experience really often.
Yes.
As you said, sometimes I just have to either journal and get the thoughts out and turn on aura meditations or sleep hypnosis and really just get to that relaxation state and just like not try to sleep at all.
Exactly. And just to your point as well, though, we can have some of our most creative, genius thoughts and insights happen while we're in a state of rest or while we're sleeping. And there's so many stories that have been documented over history of people having these incredible breakthroughs while they were having a nap or having a dream about whatever. You can also tell that to your brain, use that as information, like, yeah, you're doing some great work right now, but we might actually even have more ideas while we're asleep.
That reminds me of my time in college. I studied biology because I was really passionate about health and thinking about becoming a doctor like my parents. And what I learned in biology class was that actually even your memory happens in rest state. But all of us bio majors were never resting. We're just brute force memorizing everything. And I
Mm-hmm.
did really well in tests. I had great short-term memory. But as soon as the test was over, I would forget everything because I never actually had the time to turn those things into real memory. So I think you bring up a really insightful comment that, rest is not wasting time. It is so even good for creativity and productivity.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you
Memory
for sharing that.
consolidation, like you
Yeah.
said, never mind all the physiological health benefits that come from sleep. But yeah, that's a really, really good point. And I think so much of society and the way, say, medical school or university is structured really doesn't take into account how sleep is crucial for memory consolidation and cognitive functioning, and also mood and your ability to store positive memory. I mean, there's so much, and there's
Mm,
such interesting research that's happening, particularly from Dr. Matthew Walker and the
yeah.
research he's done on sleep and memory. And there's so many incredible scientists in the field who are studying this. But yes, sleep and memory is so crucial.
One thing interesting that I learned recently was that depending on what you're feeling, your brain absorbs information in a different depth. So when you're in positive state, you actually absorb more information. Let's say even if you're playing sports, you can see the ball coming at a slow motion if you're in a positive state. Whereas if you're in a negative state, you're filtering out most information, but you're focusing really on the most critical aspects. So that'll make you more efficient, but you will actually miss a lot of things, including creativity, but also two people will look at the same thing and see completely different things. It's almost like groundbreaking how much your emotions and your mental state affects the way you see the world and how important rest is even more to get to that positive state.
Yeah, completely. And I could look at that through the nervous system lens as well, because when you're in a stressed state, you're looking for just the crucial elements to keep you alive. It's tunnel vision, and that's evolutionarily adaptive. But like you said, you miss so much because there's a real hierarchy of needs. And while you're being chased by a tiger, you don't want to stop and smell the flowers or think about the delicious meal that you're going to have later, or whatever. It's got to tunnel focus on keeping yourself safe. I read similar research about dopamine too. When you've got dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter, you're more likely to imprint those memories and learn more efficiently when you're in that relaxed, calm, some positive emotions running through you. I see everything and filter everything through the nervous system perspective.
It's incredible how sleep affects your mood, and that can affect your entire life, like how you view the
Everything.
world, what you see. And it just shows the importance of sleep for people who are looking to improve their sleep. I know you've mentioned, really thinking about feeling safe,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that, you are resolving some traumas or even being real with yourself that there may be things that are affecting you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very important first step. Yes.
What would you recommend to people to take that step even further after doing that inner work?
Let me just say, if someone has trauma, get professional help. Don't
Mm,
try to walk through
mm,
resolving trauma on your own. It's really difficult. And even if you're not in a position where you can hire a professional, talk through it with a friend, get some support. It's really a very tricky road to walk on your own. There are wonderful resources out there now. That aside, I'm not getting paid to say this. I really have seen it time and time again, meditation and guided meditation, because you don't have to think or guide
mhm,
yourself, having somebody else guide you through a practice where you're focusing your attention on your breath, or you're focusing your attention on sensations in your hands or in your feet, or the air on your skin, or some sort of focused attention on something that's happening in real time. Or some people are really visual, and doing a guided visualization can be really helpful if that's more to your liking. And doing that as part of your wind down routine before bed can be so valuable. And in addition to that, if you wake up, you're one of those people that wake up in the middle of the night and you struggle to fall back asleep, that's a really good time to put a meditation on, so that, again, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to go into a whole panic mode about it. You tell yourself, I don't have to sleep. I'm just resting here. And then looking around your environment and making your environment as calming and as comforting and as appealing to you as possible. And whether that's moving some furniture around, getting a pillow that you really like, if you can, getting your room as dark as possible. Or I always like to use an eye mask because it has the double benefit of keeping light out, but it also becomes a sleep cue, so that when I'm traveling or on an airplane, or when I was driving around the city in Los Angeles seeing clients and I had a 15-minute break in the afternoon, I would do what I would affectionately call a car nap. And I wouldn't actually fall properly asleep, but I'd find a shaded spot, put my eye mask on, and go into a state of deep rest, which is better than a cup of coffee for me anyway, and then return to the rest of my day. But because I had that association with the eye mask, with sleep and deep relaxation, it makes it that much easier to get to that state. So, as many supportive, calming sleep cues as possible entrains your nervous system to, okay, when I put the eye mask on, when I get into bed, when I put my head on this pillow, it's time for deep rest.
So it's really about creating that like safe haven, like for yourself, like in your own bedroom. What would you say for those who say that they can't meditate because, loud thoughts come up or there's intrusive thoughts? What's your advice for someone listening who has that, I guess, struggle?
I love it when I hear people tell me they can't meditate. It's my favorite. It's my favorite people to work with, really, honestly. And I actually just uploaded a meditation to Aura called Meditation for People Who Say They Can't Meditate. It's my favorite. And I would say, as I say to everyone who says that to me, like, I hear you and I hate to tell you, you're not special. I have heard that so many times from people. Everyone thinks they have more thoughts than other people. Everyone thinks they're particularly unique in the fact that, I close my eyes and suddenly I have so many thoughts racing through my head. And it's really, really common. And one of the big misconceptions about meditation is that to do meditation, you're supposed to have no thoughts. That's a complete myth. It's physiologically impossible to have no thoughts. If you have a functional brainstem, you're going to have thoughts. That's a function of having a brain that's alive, basically. So you're not in a coma, you're going to have thoughts. You're in good company, basically, is what I say to people. The goal of meditation is not to get rid of your thoughts. It's to notice that you're having thoughts, allow the thoughts to be there, whether you like them or not, whether they're productive or not, and then learn how to direct your attention to what you want to be directing your attention to, because you're not your thoughts. Your thoughts are something that's happening. But if you think about the thoughts that you have on a daily basis, I hope that you're not your thoughts. Or maybe it's just me who has some really wild, wacky, distorted thoughts that I wouldn't want people knowing about. That's also really, really normal. So we're not our thoughts. And we actually have the ability, with time and attention, if you've ever developed a skill, it takes time to learn a new language. It takes time to learn how to, use the lap machine at the gym. I don't even know if that's a real machine because the gym is not
It is.
It is. Okay, great. I'm a Pilates yoga person. But you don't just walk into a gym and expect to be able to deadlift a huge amount of weight. It takes time. You need to learn technique. You need to build up the muscle. And it's the same thing with meditation. You can't start meditating and expect yourself to be able to reach a state of pure calm and peace and equanimity. That's just completely unrealistic, and you're going to set yourself up to failure. But you can learn how to redirect your attention for a breath and notice, my attention is really focused on these thoughts about XYZ. And I have the choice to redirect my attention somewhere else, like maybe to my breath or something visual in my visual field, or to the sensation of warmth in my hands. And then it'll snap back to a thought. That's normal. And we're cultivating strength and practice through noticing where our attention goes to and then redirecting it. And I say this to people every time you meditate, you're going to a gym for your mind. You're training your attention. And there's no goal to get to a specific state with meditation. The goal really is to learn how to hone your focus so that you can be aware of where your attention is and then have a choice about what you want to do with that. And so everyone can meditate. And I also tell people, if you've tried one form of meditation and it didn't work for you, there's thousands of different forms of meditations, and you don't like somebody's voice, try thousands of other voices that are available to listen to. And if you don't like meditating sitting up, try meditating lying down, or try meditating standing, or try it with your eyes open or closed. There's no right way to practice. Every time you practice, you're strengthening your attention or your focus muscle. And even if it's just 30 seconds, that's a great beginning.
Yeah, there's almost like a whole suite of reasons why people may not even want to try to meditate. Like they might not think it's effective. They might think it's too hard. They might not understand the benefits. At the most fundamental level, it is really an exercise in being able to control your attention on the things that matter to you and let go of others. So I really appreciated how simply you put, and you're really empowering other people to take a lighter approach towards meditation, because it is so good for you. It is so profound for you. Going back to the benefits of sleep, I'm curious to hear about your view on naps. I know in, let's say, Europe, napping is so much more common. It is almost like looked down upon here. For some context, I personally take naps in the middle of the day, work day. I encourage my team to take a walk or take a rest whenever.
Thank you for bringing up this beloved topic for me. I honestly don't know how people get through a day without taking a rest. And I understand that's such a privileged thing to be able to say. I don't want to discount the very real factors that prohibit someone from doing that. But if you're fortunate enough to be in a workplace that encourages you to do that, or work for yourself and you can set your schedule. Let's talk about a nap too, because you can fall asleep in the middle of the day and wake up feeling significantly worse off than you did before you fall asleep. If you fall asleep and you sleep for too long or wake up at the wrong time. So 20 minutes is kind of the sweet spot. If you go too much longer than 20 minutes, your body will have started to go down through the sleep cycles, and you'll wake up at a weird point on the sleep cycle and you'll experience something they call sleep inertia, which is basically feels like a hangover. You're kind of groggy and disorientated, and you're like, oh, I feel worse than when I lay down, which is not what we want. So you can mitigate that by capping your rest time to like 20 minutes. But even if you don't fall all the way asleep, if you just go into a deeply relaxed state, the benefit from doing that, particularly if you time it right, you do it early afternoon, like you mentioned, a siesta after lunch, your whole cognitive function can improve, your mood can improve, you can offset any kind of negative effects from a poor night's sleep prior. It can just bolster your creativity. There's really great research on that too. There's great science, there's great information, but you've got to try it. And if it works for you, that's the measure that you should go by, rather than what some expert tells you to do. Like, try it. Does it work for you or not? And I know for me, if I take a 20-minute rest, I do a practice of, often it's like a body scan, and I'll just put my attention on what I'm feeling in my body, on my breath. 95% of the time, I'll go to a state that is so enjoyable and so restorative. And I will say that I have done this consistently for over a decade. So I have a lot of strength training in the muscle of attention and in the muscle of letting my nervous system and my body sink into a hypnagogic state, that in between wakefulness and sleep state. But I feel like a whole new person 20 minutes later, something that a cup of coffee doesn't do for me. And if you're doing coffee in the afternoon, that can interfere with sleep at night as well. And taking a rest, even if you don't fall asleep, you just close your eyes and you settle into a calm state. I am such a fan and really, really walk my talk on that one daily.
I love that we're talking about napping because I cannot nap. And I am so jealous of Steve because when I look at him in very loud settings, like a restaurant, he's sleeping. If we go to a yoga class, he's sleeping. He's sleeping everywhere. I don't even know when he works. He's sleeping so much. So for someone like me who can't nap.
I'm working on my memory. Let's reframe that.
Why can't some people nap? Is it like the same reasons? Is it the trauma, stress? Yeah, I'm curious to get your thoughts.
It could be a nervous system thing. You're in go mode or in stress mode, been working. It's very difficult to go from like hyper focus, productivity, a level of stress in your nervous system to get what needs to be done, to then suddenly just switch off and go into a deeply relaxed meditative state and then come back out of it. So Steve, I'm so happy for you that you have that skill down, it seems. And it's obviously easier for some people than others. You can cultivate it with practice, 100%. And having somebody guide you through the process, like a guided meditation from Aura, is really, really valuable. One that's focused on deep rest, because meditation and breath work can increase your level of autonomic arousal and give you energy and give you alertness and give you focus, or it can calm everything down and put you in a really relaxed, calm state from which you can fall asleep if you need to. So not all meditation is created equal for rest and sleep. You have to really find the one that is designed and intended to take you to a place like that. If you're up for it, I'd love to set a challenge for you. 5 times a week for just 5 minutes. Don't start with like 15 or 20, or even start with 2, that you'll do some sort of guided practice where in the afternoon, when you're starting to feel that slump in energy, the 2 or 3 o'clock kind of crash, what most people will do is reach for something sugary or something caffeinated to kind of get them through. But if you, instead of doing that, just say, okay, I'm going to just do the very short practice and start getting in the habit of doing that, I'd be very interested to see what happens after a month. Maybe you could report back and Steve will have a nap competitor. Not that I want to bring competition into it, but that you'll be napping like your brother. That would be amazing. But something I hear from people a lot, and I don't know if this is the case for you, Steve, and I'm not saying this about you, but some people will say, oh, I'm so jealous of my dad. He can fall asleep anywhere. He can fall asleep in the doctor's office. He can fall asleep on the train. He can fall asleep. There's some people on the airplane that even before the plane takes off, they're already asleep. That doesn't sound like a positive thing. To me, that sounds like a sleep disorder, that they're so sleep deprived that in the middle of the day, if they close their eyes and they don't have a distraction, their body's so hungry for sleep, they're just going to fall asleep. To me, that's some indicator of sleep apnea or some other condition that means they're not getting quality sleep at night because their body can't breathe properly or some other reason that their body is so fatigued and so sleep deprived that they're taking every chance to fall asleep during the day. So when someone says that to me, I'm like, that's not actually a great thing that someone can fall asleep within a minute in a doctor's office. That is an alarm bell to me that something else is going on and needs to be investigated. But having said that, people in the military often talk about this too, or professional athletes that are traveling and going in and out of different time zones, that you can actually train yourself that when you have a short window of time, you can just leave everything to the side and go in and get the rest that you need before you have to get up again. It's a skill that you can cultivate and train. And I believe in you, Daniel. I really do.
Thank you.
I'd love to affirm that because when I was falling asleep everywhere, I was definitely sleep deprived. I realized I've been sleep deprived my whole life for various reasons, but I didn't really see the point of sleeping. It was obviously distracting from productivity. In college, it was a really brutal time. I went to UC Berkeley and there was like a semester or two where I was averaging 4 hours a night. And then I got that up to 7 hours eventually, but I was still falling asleep everywhere. And I realized that everyone has different sleep needs. And when I got to 8 hours, that's when I started becoming a normal person. And I was able to still sleep when I wanted to, but also not do that. Second thing that really helped was dramatically reducing caffeine intake. Now I only take about 50 milligrams per day. And that results in no crash, just really good amount of energy all throughout the day. There have been a lot of improvements.
That's awesome to hear and really useful for a lot of people because people don't understand that caffeine directly inhibits sleep by blocking your adenosine receptors. And adenosine is one of the two main signals to your body that it's time to sleep. And so if you're blocking the sleepy feeling from adenosine, and when you drink coffee or caffeine rather, there's I think it's like a 6 to 8 hour half-life that people don't realize. If you have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea even, it's going to take 6 to 8 hours for half of that caffeine to leave your system. And people have different metabolisms and metabolize caffeine at slightly different rates, but that's a real general rule of thumb that it impacts you for a very long time. And so having some sort of caffeine curfew, and again, finding what works best for you, it's real low-hanging fruit when it comes to sleep, is looking at your caffeine and adjusting your caffeine intake. And I'm so glad that you found that magic number for you and how to get it. It must be a really different experience for you during the day.
Thank you. Yeah. And I would love to encourage all the listeners here to really find that number that really works for you, and also challenge yourself to rely on caffeine less, because the less you do, the better quality sleep you get, and you need it less. So now it creates a positive loop that fuels your natural energy.
Exactly.
Cass, I would love to hear your advice and perspective on how someone who is so addicted to caffeine can start reducing the intake during the day and move towards a healthier route.
I think Daniel's asking for a friend here.
Yeah, asking for a friend.
Well, personally, I'm not a medical doctor, but from my own experience and from working with people, you cannot go cold turkey off caffeine. The side effects, the headaches, symptoms of caffeine withdrawal are awful, like downright awful. The source of where you're getting your caffeine, as well as the amount of caffeine, makes a difference. But I will just say, I'm talking about this as an Aussie who loves coffee so much and has had such a fraught hot-cold relationship with coffee my whole life. I started drinking coffee at 16, that I really understand. It's a big ask to ask someone, particularly to your point, Steve, someone who's sleep deprived, to give up the very thing that helps them get through the day is a really big ask, even though that could be one of the contributing factors to why they're not getting the sleep and feeling so exhausted to begin with and needing it. But slow, gradual reduction of caffeine is really important. And then slowly closing your caffeine window. So I give myself a caffeine curfew, meaning I won't drink anything or consume anything that has caffeine after like 11 a.m. because then that gives
that's early.
Your face is gold, Daniel. But again, I'm not saying anybody else should just, blindly adopt my methodology. I've found for me at this phase of my life, having 2 young kids, I can't go. I mean, I could, but I don't want to go without coffee and caffeine for me. But if I have a certain amount of caffeine and I limit the amount I have and I limit the time in which I consume it, it doesn't impact my sleep at night. I know from many experiments that I do better when I'm completely off of caffeine. I have more stable energy throughout the day and I sleep better at night. And also, it's worth noting that if someone comes to me and they're struggling with insomnia and they've had trouble sleeping for a long time and they've tried many things and it doesn't work, I'm going to really strongly encourage them to shorten their caffeine window and reduce the amount of caffeine they're having as the first step, because it can have such a big effect. But if you come to me, Daniel, and you're like, I sleep great, I've got energy in the morning, I'm good, I don't really have any issues with sleep, should I change my caffeine intake? And I'll say, if you don't have any issues and you're happy with it, you do you, you find what works for you. You don't have to follow some protocol for somebody else. But if you want to improve your sleep and you're struggling with sleep, looking at the amount of caffeine and the time in which you're consuming it is really valuable.
I love that you just said, if you're sleeping well, continue what you're doing. Because I sleep well, but I want to go to the next level in productivity, which is why I drink more caffeine. What would you say is a healthy level in terms of milligrams that someone should drink per day?
I can't give you a science-backed answer on that at the moment. I'm sure Dr. Matthew Walker or Andrew Huberman would have a number. You got to find what works for you. And for some people, caffeine from matcha or from green tea has a different effect versus caffeine from black coffee versus caffeine from chocolate. My mom, actually, she can't have anything with chocolate after 6 p.m. Otherwise, it keeps her awake all night. Whereas I can have a square of chocolate, dark chocolate at night and have no problem falling asleep. So there's so many individual differences. But I would say to you, as someone that I've known for a while and that I care about, really consider, if you want to up your productivity, caffeine isn't real, quote unquote, sustainable fuel. But the energy and the rest and the resources that you get from quality sleep are sustainable and real. Caffeine, you're kind of artificially blocking the sleep receptors. Caffeine is a performance enhancing drug. There's no doubt about it, and in certain doses at certain times. But sleep can do all of that for you and more. So if you're going to focus somewhere to improve productivity and mood and health and, I would focus more in on sleep rather than caffeine, and have caffeine as a smaller part of that pie.
Absolutely.
I'd love to get your thoughts on Yoga Nidra, which I know you're very, very versed with. I feel like it's almost a alternative to napping or sleeping. And I know when I wake up and I'm not as refreshed, I do Yoga Nidra right away in the morning, which makes me feel amazing. Curious to get your thoughts on what is the science behind Yoga Nidra and what would you recommend for our listeners?
I can't tell you how happy that makes me to hear you say that. When I first started teaching Yoga Nidra, that's what I was teaching in the drug and alcohol rehabs. People were like, Yoga Ninja? What? Thinking it was like some sort of elaborate series of poses, And I'm like, no, Yoga Nidra. Nidra, can be translated as sleep or different states of consciousness, blah, 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 blah. I have to really break it down for people. But I feel like Yoga Nidra is much more discussed now and known, particularly in America and California especially, and in Australia too, to a certain degree, and in big part from wonderful apps like yours, sharing resources like that with people. Yoga Nidra, to me, really is very ancient technology. It's the original yoga, so to speak, and has been around and tried and tested through various traditions over many, many years, and is basically a pathway into a state of really deep rest where you're not asleep, but you're not awake. Like I used to say to people, you've got one foot in the room and you've got one foot elsewhere. And it is such a deeply restorative practice. And when I did my Yoga Nidra training with Dr. Richard Miller, they were telling us, and I've seen it all over the internet, that an hour of Yoga Nidra is equivalent to like 4 hours of sleep, or something to that effect. And I don't think there's a scientific basis for that claim, but I think you can take the sentiment that that level of quality of rest counts for a lot in terms of the impact that has on your physiology, on your mind, on your mood. They've done research on Yoga Nidra for trauma, veterans, first responders, for help with insomnia, for help with anxiety, depression, all sorts of mood disorders. The research and pain is another one we haven't spoken about yet, but pain can really get in the way of sleep for obvious reasons. And Yoga Nidra is a really powerful way of changing your relationship to pain and not letting pain get in the way of accessing those deeper states of rest. In the nervous system, there's kind of a dichotomy. You're either in one or the other, which is accurate to a certain degree, but not all relaxation is created equal either. And there's different brainwave states that we can measure, the beta brainwave state, the alpha, when you're starting to get a little bit more relaxed, theta, which is that kind of hypnotic, dreamy, very relaxed state, and then all the way down to delta when you're in that real slow wave state, which is associated with deep sleep. Yoga Nidra teaches you how to navigate those different states of relaxation. From a personal standpoint, I had 2 kids very close together very recently, and my youngest one is just over a year now. And so I'm very intimately related or familiar with sleep deprivation from having 2 young kids. The gratitude that I have for the practice of Yoga Nidra is boundless, because if I had an hour, I know how to use that hour to restore as much as I can. And you can't pay back, quote unquote, years of sleep deprivation on balance, but you can counter so many of the negative effects of sleep deprivation by having a tool like that in your toolkit, where you can put yourself in a state of deep rest, which is restorative and can help you get through a period of time like that. So I'm so grateful for Yoga Nidra, and I encourage everybody to learn Yoga Nidra, be guided through a Yoga Nidra. And this is really a huge claim to say, so believe me if you want or not. But I used to teach Yoga Nidra in drug and alcohol rehabs in the States for years. And I taught online, and I have meditations on Aura. Teaching in the rehab world, these are people who typically have such difficulty sitting still, have a lot of trauma, detoxing off all sorts of different drugs or on all sorts of different meds, experiencing so much upheaval in their lives. And I did not meet a single person who didn't enjoy and benefit from Yoga Nidra, which is just wild. And I had hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of people who I led through a Yoga Nidra, and everyone got something out of it, which you can't say about other forms of meditation or yoga. And it surprised me every time how well received the practice is. So I'm a big fan personally and professionally of Yoga Nidra and its practices. I'm such a proponent of finding a practice that works for you as well. And if Yoga Nidra doesn't work for you, that's fine. There'll be something else that works for you. But I have been very happily surprised at how well received Yoga Nidra is by so many different types of people of different ages, with different backgrounds, different levels of skills when it comes to meditation. It's a really accessible path of meditation.
I would love to dig deeper into that. Why is Yoga Nidra so well received by so many different types of people versus other practices?
One of the main ways I think that it really works for people is it's really guided. You're not left alone to swim in your own experience of thoughts and memories and all sorts of content that we have with us. It's systematic. You're walked through different practices. It's been tried and true over hundreds and hundreds of years. And the specific Yoga Nidra that I was trained in from Dr. Richard Miller, he's a clinical psychologist, but also a yogic scholar. So he had a real yogic understanding, but also clinical understanding, and is really into neuroscience. So he took the bones of Yoga Nidra and took out a lot of the religious overlay and imagery that can sometimes be laid onto it to create a really secular, accessible practice that doesn't impose anything on anyone. So it's not like you're told, oh, imagine a white light or think about this. You're guided through different steps to notice what's present in your experience. You're not told to have a certain experience. You're guided through your experience as it is without anything put on top of you, if that makes sense, or any images or any experiences that you're supposed to have. Anyone can relate to it and bring their own experience and their own beliefs to the practice. And it works in terms of working with the nervous system. And it gives people something to focus on. You don't try to stop thoughts. You go through the senses, you go through sensing the breath, but you're not trying to change the breath. You're not trying to change your experience. It's a real practice of being with what is in a way that is guided and safe and held. It's really permissive and inclusive. And I think that resonates with so many people.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I can totally vouch for Yoga Nidra because whenever I do it in class, I start snoring and disrupt everyone else. It works, everyone. It really works.
Yeah, it does.
I love to talk about dreams because when I get good night's sleep or whenever I just sleep, sometimes I have dreams, other times I don't. I'd love to understand your thoughts on what does it mean when you have a dream? Does it hold any meaning? Why do some people have dreams versus others?
A question humans have been trying to answer since the beginning of time. I'm not going to claim any authority on dreams, but from where we are in science today, there's some very interesting research happening about dreams which predominantly happen when you're in a REM state, if your sleep cycle is allowed to sleep and go through the natural progression. We start with smaller amounts with REM sleep, and then they start to get longer and longer as the night goes on. We dream primarily while we're in REM sleep. As to what they mean, there's some really interesting perspectives from Dr. Matthew Walker that he outlines in his incredible book, Why We Sleep. Their currently thinking is on memory consolidation, learning, and different types of memory, and emotional processing that actually happens while we're in REM sleep, that if we interrupt REM sleep, it doesn't happen in the same way. So the jury's out on what the meaning is or what the function of dreams are, but we do know they happen predominantly in REM sleep. And if you've had a drink of alcohol before bed, say, while you have alcohol in your system, that impairs REM sleep. So you won't be going through the natural stages of sleep in the same way while you have alcohol in your system. And alcohol is a real common way that people interfere with their sleep. When the alcohol has exited your body, there's something called a REM rebound, because the body needs REM sleep so much that you'll have an excessive amount of REM sleep to try and catch up for the REM sleep that you missed earlier in the night while you had alcohol in your system. So people will often report if they had a night drinking and they wake up hungover the next day, that they'll have these really vivid dreams that they'll remember because they had such a consolidated but long REM sleep early in the morning, which means they're more likely to remember it when they wake up. I know just anecdotally from myself, I'll go through phases where I don't remember my dreams at all. And I'll go through phases where I remember dreams and have vivid dreams every night. And sometimes they seem like they have really big significance. And other times they're just like of menial tasks where I'm like, why am I dreaming of going to the grocery store when there's so many, I could be dreaming of flying. It's a beautiful mystery that we all get to live with. Who really knows?
Anything we missed on the sleep meditation side that you'd like to share?
Just to re-emphasize that not all meditation is set up to support sleep. Traditionally, meditation is not designed to help you sleep, and you're not supposed to sleep when you meditate. In Zen or Buddhism, you're supposed to be very alert and awake. And so this idea of sleep meditation is very new. A lot of people don't necessarily have the training in something like Yoga Nidra or other ways of guiding people through a process. So to be a little more discerning when you're looking for meditation for sleep, that you find something that actually is designed to help you sleep and is going to support that calming down of your nervous system.
So, Cass, I know you work with MLS athletes. Actually, we're both huge soccer fans. Myself, Messi, Daniel Ronaldo.
Mm-hmm.
Who's better these days, but I'm really curious to hear about your experience working with them. What did you teach them? How did it affect their performance? Can our listeners learn anything from your experience there?
I love sharing meditation with people who wouldn't ordinarily come to meditation. Athletes have unique challenges because they have game season and they have an off season. Often they're traveling. Sometimes they're playing games at night. Sometimes they have to get up really early. And there's a whole range of challenges that are kind of unique to athletes, and giving them the skills to put themselves into a calm state was really rewarding. And they could see that play out in performance on the field, but also in their own personal lives and mood and stress tolerance and relationships. And, so many things can improve. I think of it like a stick shift to change gears in a car. You need, lower gears for certain terrain. If you're, towing something heavy and going up a hill, and you need higher gears if you're going really fast on a freeway. And to be able to shift your nervous system into the gear that you need is so valuable. And from my perspective, to give someone the tools to shift their own gears, to put themselves in the state that they need to for whatever that is, whether it's a game or a difficult conversation or to sleep, is like giving someone the tools to their own body. Is such a wonderful thing to see, and what they do with that. Athletes specifically were really open and hungry and curious to learn how to do that.
What lessons from working with pro athletes would you say can apply to anyone who's performing at a high level?
I stayed at home with the kids for a long time, and showing up for a child or a dependent, or putting a meal on the table when you don't feel like doing it, or you're exhausted, or you're stressed, or you're worried about something. It's an investment in yourself embarking on a meditation practice, but it can be so valuable to strengthen your own internal attention and focus, and learn practical, tangible skills that you can use, whether you're at home or you're in a boardroom or you're on the soccer field, or needing to have a difficult conversation with a friend or a family member, or you're dealing with a challenging work situation. That how to shift your own gears is so valuable and empowering. I would really encourage people to let go of any preconceptions or ideas they have that meditation or any internal somatic practices need to look a specific way. It doesn't have to look like, the monk sitting on the mountain in a lotus position. It can look in so many different forms.
Wow, I just want to affirm that, because I know for me, when I found my own practice, it was life-changing. It took some time to get there, to really understand, what kind of meditation do I like? What
Mm.
kind of practices help for sleep? What kind of voices, what kind of accents, how long? It took me a long time, but once I found it was so transformative for my life that I never looked back. And I just want to encourage all the people listening to really take that step in investing in yourself to find the practices that really work for you, because even if you're so busy with motherhood or work and stress and anxiety, finding that practice can really change your life. So yeah, thank you for sharing all of the different practices that you shared with us today, because it really is so important and really can help change someone's life.
100%, really well said. And I'm glad you stuck with it. And that's what I really want to encourage people too, is like you said, you've got to find the practice that works for you, the voice, the accent, the time, the duration, the style of meditation or practice. There's so many ways to do it, and don't give up until you've found one that works for you.
This is a really important point because for athletes, the outcomes are very clear. You win or lose, and you have to perform during a set time. And so you get to experiment more quickly with different practices and really learn about yourself. Even outside of games, our mindset affects everything we do. We could be such better leaders, like work teammates, parents, friends, if we have the right mindset and the right state. And we can only get there if we truly learn how to take care of ourselves and build that habit and the practice. And if you slack off from that, you may not be an athlete. Like that will show in your relationships and your work and your
Mhm.
family. And I feel like there's just so much we can learn from what you shared with us and working with athletes and taking that to our lives.
My Yoga Nidra teacher, Richard Miller, used to say, "Do you walk the dog or does the dog walk you?" And you can ask yourself that in any given moment. Am I choosing where I'm putting my attention and my focus?
Mm.
Or am I just in the back seat, letting the environment pull my focus, letting the past pull my focus, letting something that's happening on a different continent pull my focus and then impact my state? Or am I actually choosing, okay, now in this moment, this is what I'm choosing to do, what I'm choosing to focus on, how I'm choosing to show up. And it is so empowering and, like you said, can impact every area of your life. But if we're not focusing on our attention, which is the foundation of everything, then we're at the mercy of habit, the environment, people around us, rather than actually getting to be in the driver's seat of our own
Mm.
life.
Cass, what would you say is the most unexpected gift or lesson you've gained from studying sleep?
My whole waking life has improved. I've always slept pretty well as a general rule, but going through motherhood has really shown me the impact of not sleeping well. And I love sleep, and studying sleep and having this focus on sleep I've just fallen more and more and more in love with sleep.
Mm.
And I love talking to people about sleep. I love helping people with sleep. Getting into bed at night is a really high point of my day. Professionally, one of the things when I was studying psychology that I was really concerned about for myself, thinking about becoming a psychologist, was how am I going to sit with people in such distress and traumatic situations and not completely crumble, because I'm such a empathetic, caring person. Coming into sleep, I had the incredible fortune of working with a really innovative, open-minded, holistically focused sleep clinic in Los Angeles, the Breathe Institute, who I just love and have been so privileged to work with them in such a holistic perspective on sleep and breathing. And having this focus has allowed me to help people in a way that I don't have to be the one that sits in the chair and holds space for someone going through the same story over and over and over again. And there's this kind of big referendum on talk therapy, because for some people it works great, but for some other people, they can just keep going to the therapist and keep going over the same things and not really get a whole lot of traction. But shifting into this sleep focus and field professionally has been so rewarding, and also personally for me, because I get to watch someone go through such a rapid transformation in
Mm,
every area of their life without going into the story necessarily, or the trauma, or what happened when they were a kid, or the thing that their spouse is doing that's irritating them, or whatever. It just kind of bypasses all of that, goes to the core of the issue for so many people, which is around the nervous system and sleep. And you address that, someone starts sleeping better, their
mm.
mood gets better, they ruminate less, they're happier, they're more patient with their family, they perform better at work, they're more creative. It's like the whole world opens up to them again. And I feel at the end of the day, like, wow, I'm giving someone tangible, practical tools that they can then use to transform their lives without needing to be in that traditional talk therapy role, which personally leaves me with a whole lot more energy and capacity myself. That's been a real surprising benefit of this sleep focus, is what it's given other people, but also what it's given me as a practitioner.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's one area where just simple awareness of certain techniques could change your whole life. And I think there's just so much beauty in the work you do. You get to help really anyone in the world get better sleep, but really transform their lives. So thank you for what you do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
I'd love to share with our listeners how you came to do what you do today.
I did my undergraduate degree in Australia in psychology, my honours, and then my clinical master's degree, all in Australia. And I thought I was going to be a clinical psychologist treating trauma, anxiety, mood disorders, eating disorders, all sorts of different things, and sitting in an office with people one-on-one. But I was kind of in conflict about that because I value freedom and travel and new experiences, and being able to travel for work was a real dream of mine. And I never thought that that would ever happen if I continued to follow the psychology path, which I absolutely loved. But then I moved, long story short, to California, where my license as a psychologist in Australia didn't translate. And so I was kind of open, didn't know what I was going to do. And I found, through the recommendation of a colleague, Yoga Nidra and iRest, and Dr. Richard Miller, did the training, which just happened to be a 20-minute walk from where I had moved to in Santa Monica, and fell in love with Yoga Nidra, started teaching, and then met the incredible doctors and staff at the Breathe Institute, and ended up in sleep and psychology and meditation, and then ended up working with Major League Soccer and hockey. And then I was flying around to different teams in spring training and just pinching myself, going, how on earth did I end up in this field doing what I love, but also traveling and getting to teach and working collaboratively, which was another thing that I'm so passionate about, that I didn't envision happening if I had followed a traditional psychology career. And it was just these wonderful events that happened that allowed me to now come back to Australia and work as a psychologist, but with such a vast breadth of understanding and experience in sleep and how sleep medicine works, and also get to continue to do education for other psychologists and other medical practitioners to help them understand the psychological and nervous system element of sleep and the value of meditation, and just kind of interweave all of these modalities and traditions that I love, and also see clients as well. And yeah, it's been such a wonderful, twisty, turny career trajectory, but I'm so grateful to be here. And a huge part of allowing me to work professionally the way I do is because of your app. You know, you guys have created something that's so accessible and generous and of high quality, and that really supports meditation teachers in a way that we didn't get supported before that. So it's a really incredible time to be in this field with technology where it's at, and people like yourselves creating these apps and platforms that can reach so many people.
Thank you so much, Cass.
Thank you, Cass.
Thank you both so much.
And one thing that's so unique about you is just how much passion and love you put into everything you do. Like every track you create, even this conversation, I know for sure every patient and client that you work with. I think what's really special about your story is that you just truly just follow your heart. You didn't have the most perfect plan or even vision for how you wanted your career to go, but you listened to your heart, you followed it, you gave love and passion, and people saw that and they just wanted to bring you to their platform and help more and more people together. Thank you for the love you're pouring out to the world.
Thank you for saying that. That's really generous. Thank you.
Cass, if you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice to help them find their light and transform their lives, what would that be?
Find a small window of time daily, whether that's 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, and start noticing your attention and training your attention. Then you get to choose what you're focusing on. And it's funny that you use that phrasing in the name of the podcast, because another analogy or visual that I use regularly for people is, imagine you're in a dark room and you have a flashlight or a torch, depending on what country you're in, and that you can shine your flashlight in any direction, and where you shine it is what gets illuminated. And so you're actually completely in charge of what your experience is to a certain degree within the confounds of the environment that you're in by what you're focusing your attention on. That's the most empowering thing to me to know, is that you can train your attention to choose what you're focusing on in any given moment. And if you want to find the light within you, whatever that means to you, you need to have the ability to focus your attention onto that, to discover it, to tend to it, to feed it, to cultivate it. It's really about what you're focusing on. And that is so empowering to me. Like anything worth having, it takes time and it takes practice. So a little bit and often is what my teacher used to say regarding a practice. Even if it's 10 seconds a day counts.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Cass. And where can people, for anyone looking to learn more about your work, where can they find you?
Come find me on Aura. I'm under Cass or Cassandra. I'm sure you'll have the link here, Carlopio, or I have a website, CassandraCarlopio.com. Connect with me on all the socials. Come to Aura if you're not already on Aura. Really, there's so much brilliant content and coaches, and I'm so proud to be on this app with you guys.
Cass, thank you so much again for all your wisdom and expertise today, and for joining us on Light Within. Your journey and insights are truly inspiring, and I know our listeners will walk away with feeling so empowered. So thank you.
Thanks for doing this, both of you. What a treat.
Thank you so much for watching. Hope that resonated with you.
If you're watching on YouTube, we'll love to have you win 2 round-trip tickets to Hawaii. All you have to do is head to our giveaway page in the episode description below and follow our channels.
Your support means the world to us and helps us bring these conversations to you for free. We read every single comment and we would love to connect with you there. So go subscribe. Until next time, love yourself, be kind to yourself, and remember, your light is always within you.